Hey everybody, welcome to the Mother Figures podcast. I'm Katelyn D'Arcangelo, founder and co-owner of Figure, Midwestern wife, and girl mom. I'm a dual certified pregnancy and postpartum trainer, majored in exercise science from the University of Michigan, earned my master in management degree from Duke University, and have been coaching in the fitness industry for over a decade. This podcast dives into all things pregnancy and postpartum fitness, especially in how to navigate strength and intensity training in these seasons. Whether you're in it yourself, trying to get pregnant, or coaching this population, you're in the right place. I'm excited to share personal experiences, client stories, guest interviews, and evidence-based strategies to give you the guidance, insights, and clarity needed to navigate these seasons with confidence. And with that, let's get rolling. Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Mother Figures podcast. Today I'm going to talk about symptoms that guide exercise choices in pregnancy and postpartum. So oftentimes we are commonly told to just listen to our body during pregnancy and postpartum when it comes to like what to do in the gym. This is actually what doctors and midwives and others in the pregnancy postpartum realm have told me. It's not, honestly, it's not horrible advice. It's just not the full picture. So those like outside of like the fitness profession don't really have that scope, and that's totally okay. And it's not their fault. Just like, I don't know all the intricacies of like how to deliver a baby or how to do an internal assessment as a pelvic floor therapist. Like we all have our specialties. However, when women are told to just listen to their body during pregnancy and postpartum, it can be really frustrating because it is like pretty vague. So that's kind of where I come in as a dual certified pregnancy and postpartum trainer, is to help take things like listen to your body, take that a little bit deeper. Because again, it can be just like super frustrating to hear this like super vague advice. You feel like nobody understands you, especially my moms who like to lift heavy and do high intensity work and do just higher demand things. Which is kind of like where I specialize in this world. And so when it comes to actually listening to your body, again, it's decently good advice because we do want to tune into what our body is telling us, because pregnancy and postpartum are such individualized seasons where everybody's going to feel a little something different depending on their pregnancy circumstances, their delivery, their labor, their prior fitness history. There's a lot that goes into how each individual mom goes through both of these seasons. So yes, you should be listening to your body, because there is no blanket statement around like what to do, what not to do, because every single mom is different. However, we need to know what we're listening for, and that's the piece that is often missed. And that's what I want to dive into today. So it's hard because our pregnant and our postpartum bodies are both not our normal body. So to listen to our body, we are already at a different baseline, but we want to determine what is like a normal symptom of pregnancy or postpartum versus what are signs during these seasons that would be signaling to you that you should be doing different things surrounding your activities, exercise, and stuff like that. Because again, our body's going to feel different, like just at a baseline, just like on a normal day during pregnancy and postpartum. So we want to find the things that are not common or that we shouldn't be feeling even with our changing bodies during pregnancy and postpartum. So first, I'll touch on the signs that we might want to listen into more, or that could be telling us something about our exercise volume, demand, all that kind of stuff during both seasons. And then there's a few that are either pregnancy specific or postpartum specific that will help you guide exercise selection, intensity, volume during these seasons. So we'll kind of split it up into three parts. So one is like things that should be tuning in for during both seasons, and then a little bit on just pregnancy and a little bit on just postpartum. So first one for during both seasons would be like obvious fatigue, exhaustion signs. So feeling faint, dizzy, nauseous, extreme like body achy fatigue. Obviously there's a level of like workout fatigue that you'll feel, but this is like going beyond that, and you would be able to feel that. Feeling like pukey, lightheadedness, just overall signs of body exhaustion. And this applies to any season of life, not just pregnancy and postpartum. So this is a pretty easy one to know, like, if you're getting black spots, like, let's calm down a little bit. So that's number one, is just obvious signs during both seasons. Number two would be pelvic signs during either pregnancy or postpartum. So a few of those signs might be, one, incontinence. So that could be an involuntary leaking of either urine, feces, or gas. And so obviously this is something that affects our quality of life. It's something that we don't want to be doing. Anytime we're peeing our pants is like not a fun time. So that would be a sign that either there is a threshold that is reached. So maybe they're like at the end of the workout, that's when you start leaking. So it could just be like pelvic floor muscle fatigue. It could be after a certain amount of reps. Maybe you're doing double unders and the first 10 reps, you're fine. And then you start like leaking a little bit. It could be like a threshold of like a number of reps or a time duration. So same thing with running, maybe after like a mile, then you start like leaking or having that incontinence symptom come up. So it doesn't always have to be like in the first like instance of it. Like there could be a threshold that is reached, but it could also be during specific movements where the pelvic floor is in a vulnerable positioning that would like put it out of whack essentially, or out of alignment, so that you then like experience the incontinence. So things like coming out of the bottom of a squat where your pelvic floor is really lengthened and open essentially at the bottom of the squat, and then we're trying to lift a heavy barbell and come out. It could happen during the time as well. So I say all that to kind of indicate that we should be seeing not just if incontinence happens, but also when and under what circumstances. So maybe it almost always comes down to those two buckets. Either a threshold or a capacity is reached, or there's a vulnerable positioning of the pelvic floor. So we want to try to pinpoint when the incontinence is happening, because then we can have a better game plan around adjusting those variables to hopefully mitigate that symptom, which also kind of applies to all the rest of these as well. So pelvic sign to look for, number two, would be heaviness. So that would be like a falling out feeling, pressure, bulging feeling in the pelvic floor. For similar reasons, there could be a capacity or a threshold that was reached. Maybe our pelvic floor is in a vulnerable position or out of alignment. Maybe our breath timing isn't quite right. There's a lot of ways that we can go about adjusting why the symptoms are happening. That's not really the point of this podcast per se. I just want to show you guys all the things that you should be looking for, because this could get really lengthy really quick. But again, incontinence, heaviness, two main pelvic signs. And then we also have SPD symptoms, so symphysis pubis dysfunction. That would be sharp shooting pain down the center of your pelvis. So it's where the two halves of the pelvis meet at the center. That is called your symphysis pubis joint. And that is where we can feel a lot of achiness because of our body's like hormones that are loosening up our joints. With the applied pressure of our body weight coming down, with the added pressure of our body, like center of gravity changing. And then when you add exercise on top of that, it can create this like trifecta effect, getting that pelvis to feel the symptoms of symphysis pubis dysfunction. So that would be if we start feeling either that sharp shooting or a general achiness starting to come about right dead center on the pelvis. That would be a sign to, again, pull back a little bit, or just something to look for. And then also in terms of pelvic in general, we're thinking like low back pain, hip pain, general achiness, pinching, sharpness, clicking, grinding feelings anywhere at or around the pelvis. Because the pelvis obviously has a lot of change happening to it. That's the main like center where change is happening during pregnancy and during postpartum after the baby comes out. So those are things that we are listening for: the incontinence, heaviness, SPD symptoms, and then just general pelvic symptoms during both pregnancy and postpartum. I will say symphysis pubis dysfunction is generally more in the pregnancy realm. However, like with my first pregnancy, I had SPD symptoms all the way until about 4 months postpartum, where I couldn't sleep without a pillow between my legs. I still had to take a lot of like caution around like single leg stuff because of SPD during pregnancy. So it can kind of fall into that postpartum category as well. However, it is way less common during postpartum. It's more common during pregnancy. And again, all of this could come down to different things, like the threshold was reached, like I talked about with like, double unders or running or just muscle fatigue at the end of a workout. And then these things could also happen because of a vulnerable positioning of the pelvic floor in certain movement patterns, like coming out of the bottom of a squat, high impact work in general, high degrees of core extension or flexion. So a lot of times like, kipping bar movements or sit-ups or a lot of different things can spark the pelvic floor to come out of alignment or just be in a very pronounced position. And those things can all spark different pelvic signs. So these are all signs to look for. It is not an indication that you have to remove the exercise. There's a lot of ways to adjust things prior to movement removal. And maybe that's a whole nother podcast I should go into. But that is pelvic signs during both pregnancy and postpartum. Next one is going to be core signs, deep core signs during both seasons. So the main thing that we're looking for here is doming, coning, bulging along the midline of our core. That's called our linea alba. So our six-pack muscles run down the center of our midline, and then right in the middle of that is our linea alba. It's connective tissue that's connecting both sides of our core. And so that is kind of the pressure or the place of least resistance. So when we are unable to manage pressure, when we are not able to quite properly engage our deep core muscles or maintain engagement, we will see that pushing of pressure forward into that midline, which is the expression of that doming, coning, or bulging. That does not mean that you have a diastasis per se. It just means that that's where the pressure is going. We need to find a way to better connect our core so we can be stronger functionally throughout our whole midsection and reduce any of that unwanted pressure going out on a tissue that's already weakened and thinned. So we're trying to kind of protect ourselves in all degrees here. So that would be one core sign to look for during pregnancy and postpartum fitness or workouts. Number two, and I've had multiple moms express this, is they physically can't even feel their core engage. Like their brain is telling their core to like squeeze or like flex their muscles, and they can't even get that to happen. So this would be an obvious sign during pregnancy or postpartum to work on that deep core connection first. That it takes a while. It can take, the mind to body connection. It can take a bit. But that would be a really good sign that like maybe we shouldn't be going super hard quite yet because we haven't even laid the foundation. And a caveat to that is that strength training can also be part of how we help that connection be reestablished. So we don't want to remove strength training. We don't want to say because you can't feel your core muscles, then we shouldn't be doing anything, because that's like deloading, and that doesn't help either. Like we want to strengthen, and sometimes that can help build the connection. So it doesn't mean, none of this means that you have to stop exercise by any means. These are just symptoms of general exercise, or that you might feel during exercise, that would indicate that something should be changed so that we can be more effective. So I want to make a blanket statement there. So number two, can't feel your core engage at all, which kind of is also connected to number three, which is a general weakness or instability in the body in general. So your core is where force is transferred during exercise. It's kind of the center point of everything that you do. So general feelings of body weakness or like the inability to control your body or feeling unstable could be a core strength and connection issue, which would indicate that we need more core connection training. We need to prioritize that as we continue to build on different things, but we don't want to build on too fast again, because that deep layer of connection is going to be critical. So again, we want to use strength training as a way, or as a tool essentially, to build that connection. But there's also a fine line between like, we're not just trying to go max out our deadlifts before we can feel our core first. So there's a progression to it, but we also want to be using strength training as a way to help with these symptoms if this is what we're feeling during our workout. So similar to pelvic signs, these things can happen again if we reach our core's muscle capacity, especially in the case of like that bulging, coning, doming feeling. It might just be too much pressure for our core to manage, and that's why we're seeing that bulging. So we might just have to adjust our alignment. So maybe our rib cage isn't stacked over our hips, and maybe we're kind of all funky and out of whack. So it's harder to manage pressure. We can adjust a lot of different breath strategies. So breath timing, breath like appropriateness, like how we're actually breathing. And then also like core muscle recruitment. So recruiting the deep core muscles versus like them not turning on at all. So again, I wouldn't automatically remove a movement because of doming before playing with these variables. So that's where coaching comes into play huge here. Like especially for my in-person, so I do an in-person postpartum class where I can help directly with this, and in my general ladies classes I do this as well. But in my app program, I also am there for you 24/7 in the app messaging feature. It's me, it's not a different coach or a different bot. And so I will have clients ask me questions or even send me videos of like, hey, am I engaging my core right? Or like, I feel this symptom during this movement. Like, what are some strategies around that? So that's where coaching comes in huge when it comes to like pelvic and core like symptoms that you're feeling, because it doesn't mean that you should be removing that movement. It just might mean that we have a strategy that we need to adjust a little bit, whether that again be alignment, breath strategy, core recruitment, maybe it's form, maybe it's general like load, intensity, duration, like all the general training factors. So having somebody, a coach that knows what they're doing, to ask for how to adjust if you are listening for your body and you feel this stuff, it's the next step of like, what do we do about it? That is really important. So, and again, I'm going to create a whole nother podcast episode on that because that can take a while. But anyway, so that was the signs and symptoms to look for during both seasons. So the obvious signs, the pelvic floor signs, and then the core signs. And then when it comes to pregnancy specifically, there are 3 different main symptoms to be looking for during the season that would indicate that we need to adjust your training in some way. So one is bleeding of any kind at any time. So that would be a straight call to your medical provider. We do not want to be bleeding, obviously, at all during pregnancy. And so if it happens during your workout, or maybe it's doing laundry, or maybe it's on a walk, it could be at any time, that would be a direct indication, something that we don't want to be seeing happen during pregnancy. Number 2, for pregnancy specifically, some women, it's about 8 to 10%. When they lay down, they will feel super dizzy and faint when they're on their back specifically. And this is called supine hypotensive syndrome. So it's when the uterus pushes pressure onto the inferior vena cava, which is like the vein that it restricts blood flow back to the mom. So you will feel like this extreme, dizziness, faintness, and you will immediately want to get out of that position. It is not harmful because your body literally will just like shoot you out of that position. We just need to find different options. There is no reason to modify around this, no reason to try to keep laying on your back. That is an immediate try something else. This can be like bench press. This can be glute bridges. This can be anything laying on your back. Again, this is one of the reasons why women are told not to do any back-lying movements after week 20 of their pregnancy. However, only 8 to 10% of women experience this. And a lot of times it's after 3 to 10 minutes of sustained laying. So when it comes to a bench press that is like 30 seconds long, if you go and do that bench press and you feel fine and you come out of it, keep doing the bench press. Like there's no reason to just blanket statement restrict back-lying exercises if it only happens in a few percent of people and after an extended amount of time. So maybe bench press, like for me, I was totally fine in the gym. Sometimes I would feel it a little bit when I was doing glute bridges, but it was when I was laying on a couch, like reclined for a while, I would have to like shift myself out of that position because it wouldn't be extreme for me. It was more of like a mild, like, oh, I just feel like a little woozy, like I should pull myself out of this position. So it's more so like activities of daily living, like literally laying on a couch where I would feel this. So it kind of sucks that exercise gets put on exercise, like the bad rep of that. But regardless, so that would be a pregnancy sign. If you feel that immediately, just get out of it. No reason to modify, try something different completely. And then number 3 is early signs of labor. So like any contractions, any just, early signs of labor in general, which is not the same as a feeling of like tightness or squeezing in the belly. I felt this. I've had a lot of clients feel this too, where the core muscle is just kind of like squeezing in the midsection. As you're doing activities or maybe in between reps, it could feel like, oh my gosh, is this a contraction? But it's not a contraction. It's just your muscle, your core muscle, like on top of your belly. You'll feel the difference of this. But that is just a sensation that comes and goes really transiently. So it's nothing to be alarmed by. You can just like pause and let it pass over. I just keep lifting throughout it. It's not painful or anything. You just kind of feel that extra squeeze. So I just want to throw that in there, that is not the same as like early signs of labor. It is pretty common because, again, the core muscle is a muscle. It is going to contract when you are exercising and doing activities. And so feeling sometimes that like tight squeeze or like a little grab around your belly is nothing to be afraid of. So those are pregnancy specific. When it comes to postpartum specific signs to look for, in addition to the ones that we are trying to look for in both seasons, the main one is the increase in volume or brightness in color of blood within that first 1 to 8 weeks postpartum. So this is our body's sign of our internal healing, which oftentimes does not match how our external body wants, how hard we want to actually go. So the body is feeling good, like a lot of times mentally, physically, like we're feeling like our body is like ready for more. When we do that more, we start to feel or see an increase in volume or in brightness of color of our blood in that first 1 to 8 weeks. And that is your internal body telling you that it ain't ready to do what your external body wants it to do. So this is your best way of gauging the like how fast you should increase your level of intensity or activity just in general. This can come about from daily tasks too. So like if you go from like laying on the couch to start doing dishes every day, like that can also increase your volume or brightness and color of bleeding in that first few weeks. And so this is not just exercise specific, but just in general, it's your body's internal temperature essentially telling you like what you are or are not ready for. So even if you go into the gym, let's say at 8 weeks postpartum or so, and you pull a barbell deadlift and it feels good, like physically, you probably feel good. If the next day or maybe a few hours later, you start to bleed when you have already stopped bleeding, or again, any increase in volume or color, that would be a sign that your body is just not ready for it yet. So it's actually our easiest way to dictate how fast to progress in those early first few weeks. So tune into that, listen to that, and let that gauge your progress forward in those early days postpartum. So overall, listening to your body is important, yes, but we need to know what to listen for. So again, just a general list of things. First is that general signs of exhaustion. We got pelvic floor signs like incontinence, heaviness, pain, aches, tension, and then core signs like doming, feeling of weakness, unable to control the core, instability. All those are kind of throughout both seasons of pregnancy and postpartum. And then we have pregnancy-specific symptoms we're looking for are things like bleeding, that supine hypotensive syndrome, that dizziness laying on your back, any early signs of labor. And then postpartum, we're really tuning into those early bleeding symptoms in that first like 1 to 8-ish weeks. And yeah, so hopefully that helps. Again, not to just like blanket statement or like have a vague advice of just listening to your body. We want to listen to our body, but since these seasons are different, our body's going to feel different. So these are the key pieces that we want to be looking for to help us guide our exercise choices so we can be smarter and work with our body so we can have the best experiences during both of these seasons of life. So with that, I will see you guys on the next episode. Thanks for tuning in to the Mother Figures podcast. If these episodes help or resonate with you in any way, it would be so helpful to the show if you could leave a review so we can get this into more moms' hands. And if you're looking for even more guidance and direction when it comes to pregnancy and postpartum fitness, I got you covered. My Mother Figures app subscription includes my Figure Pregnancy and Figure Postpartum workout programs, in addition to our general fitness programs. You'll get the day-by-day workouts you need to help you feel strong, pain-free, and labor-ready during pregnancy, and also the recovery, strength, and progressions you'll need to get back to the activities you love, full of strength and without symptoms after baby arrives. If you're local to the Brighton, Michigan area, I also host daily women's functional fitness classes, a 6-week postpartum return to fitness course, and pregnancy and postpartum consultation sessions. For those who are providers, coaches, or practitioners in the space, I hold a live Mother Figures certification course that equips you with the knowledge, tools, and confidence to train and work with this population. For information on all of these services and programs, make sure to check out fitisgettingreal.com/moms or head to the show notes for the direct link. I'm so thankful that you tuned in today's episode, and I will catch you next time.